Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Isabelle Fortin here on the podcast. Super pumped for you guys to listen to her story and her expertise on leadership and how to build a really good communication with your team at whatever size and whatever business. We're going to dive in toward the end around some tactics and practical steps for you to take. So listen all the way through. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And then I have a free gift for everybody listening in here. Down at the bottom of the description, so many people want to build an online business, but they just struggled knowing how to leverage AI, how to build a team, how to do ads, all these different things. And so I built this whole workshop for you to get a lot of value from. Go down and check that out. My gift to you. Isabelle, as we dive into it, one of the questions I asked everybody is, what is high performance? What does that look like? What does that mean to you? And being in leadership and building teams for all these years, what is that key thing that you've seen so many people exceed in with applying that?
That's a great question, Nathan. Thank you for having me. First of all, high performance for me is not so much about getting things done, although of course it plays a role into that, but it's having the right people in the right chair. Because if you truly align the work with the natural ability of your employees, not only is it good for business because they're going to be more motivated, more productive, less margin, a shorter margin of error, and they're going to be engaged and fulfilled in their job. And that for me is what a high performing team is the right job, the right task for each individual. And,
I love
people
that.
are we all have our specific zone of genius. So it's not that complicated to do when you think about it. You just have to bother. You know what I mean? So you have to actually care and actually tap into that.
I got some ideas of where we can ask you some specific questions around your expertise. But before we dive into some of those tactics and applications of things, tell the audience here a little bit about like how you have your success, how you serve people now, and then we can go into asking about how this all started too.
Well, I use a psychometric assessment, and I am very picky about the way that I name that because it's not a personality test. I I cannot tell you how much I hate that term. I don't believe anybody's personality is to be tested. Because if you say test, that means there's a potential to fail and you're perfect. You were born whole and you are perfect. So it is a psychometric assessment. So basically, what's your cognitive preferences, what your behavioral preferences, your communication preferences, what are your deep core values and motivations? Because as you know, Nathan, there's no way to motivate any human being to do anything at any time, except with fear and violence. And both of these ways are extremely bad, and we don't want that. So what you need to do is actually go find out what motivates them and tap into that, right? So this assessment is basically, how is your brain wired? Like how much do you like challenges and how much do you need it? Because some people thrive on challenges and some people it's like, oh, give me only one at a time. So you got to know how your people's brains are wired. So that's the main tool that I use for my job. And I absolutely love it because I get custom made results, basically. Because even with the leader, before they even show up with for the first one-on-one that I have with them, I'm already efficient in the way that I'm going to communicate with them because they did the assessment first and then I talk to them, right? So it's extremely, extremely powerful.
I love that. How did you become this leader that's leading leaders? How did it bring us at the very beginning of like where the origin story began? How you knew you were a little wired, a little bit different to be an entrepreneur, and now you're at this place of success. Like, bring us through that journey.
Well, the entrepreneurship in me was a long time coming. I as a child, I always thought I was born to be the boss kind of a thing, but I don't really know if that's because I don't take orders well, or I really don't. And ironically, my first job was in the military. And I know it doesn't jive with people. Most of the time go, you don't take orders well and you join the military. What's wrong with you? But it was the family business. Both my parents had served in the Air Force. And when I joined, I'm the youngest of the siblings. And when I joined, my brother was an Air Force pilot. So it didn't really dawn on me, and I had been in the cadets, and it didn't really dawn on me that I could do anything else. So after a decade in the military, I, joined the corporate world, and I was thrown for a loop as far as leadership was concerned. Because one thing that the military is extremely good at is tapping into the unique abilities of individual. And although it really comes across as being in command and control, and in some ways it is, and it should be, it's the military. It is also, since it's the mission comes first, well, then the mission comes first. So if the recruit is best at doing one task, even though Master Corporal so-and-so has been doing that task for a little while, well, then the recruit is going to get that task because they're going to be more efficient. They're going to have less margins of errors, and they're just going to be more productive. And that's going to serve the mission, right? So when I joined corporate world, I was dumbfounded. And Nathan, I have to tell you, the first job, I thought, wow, this is a bad boss. But I thought it was her. And then I got to my second job and I go, holy goodness, it's more of the same. And then I get to the third job and it's still the same. And I went, okay, so there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. And I don't know and I found out what it is. It's the lack of leadership training. In the military, every leader has had leadership training. In the corporate world, that doesn't exist. And that's bad, because a bad leader has a lot of impact on people's lives. And so does good leadership. True, also. So no, it's just, and that's how I got to where I am now.
What is good leadership? What does that look like then?
Well, to me, of course, everybody's different. To me, is the good leader serves the people. And if you serve the people will do the job, right? It was an interview at the BBC. Richard Branson was asked, so how do you take care of your customers? And, he snarks a little bit because he's very jovial and he laughs at a lot. And he's kind of giggling and he says, I don't. I take care of my people and they take care of my clients. So that's the same thing. You take care of the people. Your job is to know, do they have the training? Do they have the tools? Or are the process in place? Is it a structure problem or is it a person problem? And once all of that is done and you give them the tools to thrive, they will. So that's what good leadership is to me.
I love that. I mean, I think the job needs to be executed on time and done well, but then we have to hold them to that margin. And so, or to that at least expectation. So I think the mix that people have is that there's a boss of command, and then leadership is, let me show you how to do it. And then we work through that clear expectation. Or how do you kind of assess what's the difference between a boss and then an actual leader that serves their team in a way that allows them to execute their best?
Well, I think that one of the biggest misconceptions out there is the difference between leadership and management. I think that in most corporations that I've worked with, even the mom and pop shop to the large companies, they confuse the two. Management is about making sure the train's on time. Leadership is about supporting the people. And there's a big difference. But I think that confusion comes from the fact that being a manager is, okay, but being a leader, it sounds sexy, right? So I'm the leader of my department. If all you do is make sure that the train is on time, you're not a leader, you're a manager. And that's okay. Both serve their purpose. But if we talk about leadership, that's about the people. It's not about the task. Of course, the task needs to get done. Of course. But if you empower your people, they will do it on time. If they have the right equipment, if they have the right training, if they have all the ingredients necessary for the train to leave on time, it's going to. And you know what? What's extremely surprising, Nathan, is they really don't need a lot. They just need a little bit. And if you give them that, they will crawl through broken glass for you because they feel like they matter. They know how and what they contribute. And people aren't working for their paychecks anymore. They need more out of their workspace. They need to be seen, heard, and valued. And I understand the leaders go, oh my goodness, okay, I got to do that. Yes, but imagine how much better your life's going to get. Most leaders I work with, Nathan, they feel like they are babysitters. I got to take care of this, and this person is having a crisis, and this person no longer are talking, and they're in the same team, and blah, blah, blah. But people they're not fighting for power. They're fighting to be recognized. They're fighting to know what it is that's special about them. And as soon as you give them that, they stop fighting.
I'm thinking of a business owner or a leader. There's different stages of amount of team and complexity, right? And different industries have different challenges and people and expertise that they need to have. But how can a leader lead the best? And so they get assessment of understanding their team's personality type and assessing, hey, are they in the right seat in the right bus? They can look at those strengths, no doubt, and then also knowing how to communicate with them most effectively. I think there's some really good evaluations that really can help bring some of that clarity with it. But I do know that there's some things too, like EQ, that things are popping up, like that understanding of the emotional side. And then we also have like 5 generations in the workforce now, which is way different than now than ever. So there's more complexity there.
Mm-hmm.
We have, some people want to be remote. We have some businesses that are remote, and then you have people that are in person. I think there's some dynamics here of like trying to lead well. And then if you have contractors versus employees, then you have like overseas team or not. Like talk about some of these, things that you've had to sort through, and how can a leader really kind of shine, and what are those steps that they can do to really do their best?
Well, that's a loaded question. So I've seen all of this: the remote, the in person, the abroad, not the same nationality, not the same culture, not the same time zone, trying to work together. And people are people, and if you get to know them on a deep, deep level, and by that, I don't mean what they had for dinner, is if you understand their cognitive preferences, their behavioral preferences. So basically, how is their brain wired? If you understand their motivation, their true core value, and you tap into that, it simplifies everything. And a lot of coaches out there I see, and I'm not bad mouthing anybody, there's room for everyone in this world, and there's not one good way of doing things. But I find that a lot of them is okay, well, find common ground with the person you don't get along. Well, how about the fact that you're human and you're doing your damn best today? Isn't that enough? And I feel that we are losing touch with our humanity. And social media is polarizing us because if you do the test, and that's been proven over and over and over again. You talk about going to China, and all of a sudden, Google Ads are showing you trips to China because your phones are listening to us, right? So the algorithms are separating us, and it's very important as a leader to bring people together and just we are all, being human is not easy, and we are all dealing with stuff nobody knows about. And we all are doing our best. So if you bring it back to the simple human needs, it gets easier. Of course, when you start working with someone like me, it gets a little bit more complicated at the beginning before it gets easier. But most leaders that I meet, Nathan, all have the same complaints. I feel like a babysitter. I don't have time to do my job, let alone train them, let alone me get better at my task, let alone working on my passion projects. And I get to the end of my day and I am completely depleted and I have to do it all over again the next day. And the way out of that is by empowering your employees and then your team members, and they just don't know how. And it's not their fault. For all the leaders and the managers listening right now, guys, seriously, it is not your fault. You're doing the best thing. You're doing the best that you can. You just need better tools. You need better questions. And when you get that answered, it becomes easier.
I remember hearing something around the leader should know what their drive is for their employee. Like, what are they shooting for? You know, it's not necessarily just making a lot of money, but what is like, what's their next step? They want to buy a house or they want to, have a relationship, or trying to find those drivers, and helping them accomplish with those goals in mind, with those vision. And it's not necessarily all the time like work oriented thing. It's like you're working toward helping them accomplish whatever those goals are. How important have you been able to help leaders to emphasize like what do you need to know? What are the questions to ask? Like those are the key things you need to know about your team.
I think that
What are some things there that you think?
I think that the first thing, of course, if you lead a team of 50, that might be a little bit more difficult. But the first thing is to actually do one-on-one with people, like 15 minutes a week per person, let's say. Um, and don't talk about work. Find out what they did this weekend. Find out, what their mother's name is, and maybe their sister is, just got diagnosed with cancer, and let them. And here's the trick, Nathan. Once you ask open-ended question, shut up. And most leaders, we get into leadership positions because we have, most of us, the capacity for blab. And I say that with a very kind heart because God knows I'm able to do that. And every leadership role that I've had in my life, I've made that mistake. That's why I know how to avoid it. Is you need to give your employees room to speak and listen to what they're not saying. Listen to what they're not saying. As a human, we are screaming our values all day long in everything we talk about, everything. And other people don't listen. And I don't blame them. I don't always listen either. Right? So if you actually listen to the motivation, and to go back to your example, hey, listen, maybe they're trying to put money aside because they want to buy their first home, or maybe they're slowly thinking of retirement and they don't exactly know how to tell you, and maybe and maybe and maybe and maybe, or and maybe they can't retire because they had kids a little later on in life, and now they're teenagers or getting to university even though they're in their 60s, and they're going, I have to pay for tuition, right? But the trick is it's on a human level, is actually care about what they're saying. That's it.
I think that's a big one.
Care.
Servant leadership, and then tactically put together time on the calendar to spend with your team.
And don't have them come to your office, go to theirs. And if they don't have an office, go to the cafeteria, buy them a coffee. Or go for a walk. Or whatever. But go
How do you do it
on
virtually?
their turf.
How do you do it virtually then? What's a good way of approaching that?
Yeah, that's a little bit more tricky, but it's let them schedule the meeting, let them set up the meeting, let them tell you what they want to talk about. And if they, because some employees will say, no, I got nothing to say to you, or, I got nothing specific, or everything's going well, then, go into, hey, what are you passionate about lately? And anything, look at them in the eyes, even remote, and look at them in the eyes and see the sparkle in the eyes, because you're going to find something that illuminates their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you tap into.
And what I'm seeing with this, and what I'm hearing from you too, is it creates more of a bond with people that if you can help build them, encourage them, they're going to then do their best
That's right.
for you, do their best with, the work that they're doing. They're going to stay longer because they're heard and listened to and cared for, even if it's not necessarily monetary. It's like people understand them. And I've heard this said too. It's like people don't just leave organizations, they leave leaders, and I think there's something to be said about that because leadership is a skill,
Mm-hmm.
to learn and to grow into as well. And it's like, I think if anybody's listening here and they're saying, hey, everybody's a leader of something,
Yes.
a leader of their family,
Yes.
a leader at their school,
Yep.
a leader at whatever, right? And I think it's real important to say, okay, if I am a leader, what are the skills I need to learn? How can I be more empathetic? How can I lead with strength and not just as a command down? It's more of a lead side by side. And I think that trajectory is going to help people build that empathy and that skill to be able to have people be able to run through walls for them.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely.
think
Nice. I say
talk
that all the
talk about
time.
some of the outcomes. Talk
I,
about some of the outcomes you've seen with some of that.
oh, my biggest one is I worked with a team of university researcher, and they were fighting. I'm sorry, I just need to plug this. Okay. They were really cerebral. I mean, you're talking about 6 people with post PhDs in microbiology. So like brainiacs, right? This is, and in a lab, in order to know the results that you're getting, you have to do the same things in the same way with the same baseline, because if the baseline is different, then you can't prove that what you're trying to find, right? Because the baseline changed. So there was 6 people, including the leader, and these people were arguing for the best stapler. This is how ridiculous it had gone. And the leader had tried everything. She truly had. She had tried the friendly approach, the one-on-ones. She had tried talking with all 6. She had tried the command and control. She had tried it. She had done everything that she knew how. And again, lack of leadership training, because you are absolutely right. Leadership is a skill. And for some reason unknown to me, we aren't teaching leadership anywhere. People have to step outside and almost, in some corporation, almost beg for the training. There's always training for sales, though, but there isn't training for leadership. So I was called in, and I just, with the assessment that I use, I realized very quickly that 5 of them, including the leader, are extremely structured, but even in their way that their brain is wired, not only in the way that the work needs to be done. So if you can tell me something in an email instead of telling me in person, send it to me via email, kind of a person. There are people like that, where use less than 10 words and leave my office, kind of a thing. And it's not bad. It's not that they don't like their coworkers. That's just the way that their brain is wired. And the 6th person was the complete opposite. She's not task oriented. She's human interaction focused. That's the way that her brain is wired. So she felt like she didn't belong, like people didn't appreciate her, like people actually hated her because they wouldn't go in her office on Monday and ask her how she was and if she had done something excited over the weekend. And when all of them, because I was hired for a group coaching with them, when they all realized that, they could right away understood that wasn't a pet peeve of her. She wasn't being fussy. That is a need. That's her need. That's the way her brain is wired. So all of a sudden, just because they recognize that's what she needs to thrive, the infighting stopped like this because they recognize that the brain is just wired differently. And that's my favorite story because it was the infighting stopped immediately. And that's rare. That's rare. But they were able to finally connect on a human level. We're all humans. 100% of your employees are humans. 100% of your collaborators are humans. 100% of your investors are humans. And 100% of your clients are humans. If you don't know human beings, you don't know business. You're not going to be good at it. And negotiating, and that's actually not my sentence or not my quote. And truly, Nathan, I wish it was, but I need to give credit when credit is due. It's a quote from Chris Voss. Negotiating with your spouse where to go on vacation, negotiating with your employer to get a raise, or negotiating with your 4-year-old so they eat their broccoli is the same thing. Find what's in it for them. That's it. Find and truly what's in it for them. Yes. Well, I do. I work with a psychometric assessment that's from Switzerland. It's called NOVA. It's not well known in the United States. I think they're in 9 countries. It's in 9 languages anyway. So it's just a questionnaire. It lasts about 20 minutes. So when people hire me, the first thing that I do is I send a link. They take 20 minutes. I get a report. I analyze the report because this is not AI generated. And I look at the report because you can take a part of, let's say, your cognitive preferences, and you can take your communication preferences like another box, and you can take your behavioral preferences in another box. But what the report doesn't say is, how are these boxes talking to one another? Because they are talking to one another, right? So it's like saying, well, my childhood was one thing, my teenagers was another thing, and me as an adult is another thing. Well, no, it's not. It's the continuity of your entire life. So it's the same thing. So I analyze the data, and then it comes with a 90-minute debrief. And for 90 minutes, I talk to people about their favorite subject, them, and how is their brain wired. And sometimes I get a little bit of pushback, and no, I'm not like that. And when I ask questions and when I dig a little bit deeper, they realize that they are like that and that the result is actually accurate. So I absolutely love that assessment for two reasons, Nathan. The first one is because not only will it give you how you are naturally, but also how you are adapting. And as humans, we adapt to situations all day long, all of our lives. But when the adaptive part of you is too far away from how you are naturally, that's not good for your mental health, right? It's costing you too much. So a lot of people don't even realize that you're adapting to something. You always are. There's, like it's say, plus or minus 10 to 15 is normal, but after that, it's going to create problems for you. But the second reason I absolutely love this assessment is because it goes into the motivation. And we said that off air. Nathan, you cannot motivate anybody to do anything ever. You can't. Unless you use fear or violence, and none of them are desirable. So you need to go into and learn what motivates other people and tap into that and show them how what you're trying to accomplish is actually good for them and why, or what's in it for them. And then again, they will crawl through broken glass because that's for them. They're doing it for them. And so they should, honestly. We have to look, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's not being selfish, it's being self-full. We have to take care of ourselves. If not, we have nothing to offer this world. And that'd be very, very sad.